So thank you everyone for joining. Waiting for the live stream to start. Okay, so we are holding here in the Gemara, Mesechta Megillah, Daf Tes Zayin Amud Aleph, 16a. So we're in the middle of it. The Gemara will now, for the most of the Amud, go through a fascinating discussion and the whole story, the discussion between Haman and Achashverosh, which is only hinted to in the Megillah, not quite written directly in the Megillah. And the Gemara will also go through the story, what happened when Haman went to give Mordechai the honors and the everything. Hey, Dovi, that Achashverosh told Haman to give to Mordechai. So let's start reading it inside. It says I guess first we'll start off a little bit looking at the Megillah itself, and then we'll go to the Gemara, because the Gemara is assuming that one is knowledgeable already in all of the psukim, all the verses of the Megillah. So let us focus a little bit on a few psukim of the Megillah. It says, "Vayomer hamelech mi lechatzir." The king said, "Who is in the courtyard?" V'Haman ba lechatzar beis hamelech hachitzayna. Haman came to the outer courtyard, which we saw where it was yesterday. Leimar lamelech, tell the king, lislois es Mordechai tehei Mordechai, ala eitz asher hechin loi. On the gallows which Haman prepared for him. We said him could be either prepared for Mordechai, he prepared for himself, according to the Medrash, or according to Rabbi Sinaipshitz, he prepared these gallows actually for Achashverosh. Vayomeru narei hamelech elav, and the servants of the king said to Achashverosh, Hinei Haman oimed bechatzar, behold, Haman is standing in the courtyard. Vayomer hamelech yavai, and the king says, great, let him come. He's exactly the man I was thinking about. I need his advice how to honor the person who saved my life. Vayavai Haman, and Haman entered the king's chamber. Vayomer lo hamelech, and the king said to him, before Haman had the chance to ask for permission to kill Mordechai, immediately the king said, what should be done to the man whom the king wishes to honor? I wish to honor someone. What is your advice? Vayomer Haman beliboy, and Haman said in his heart, Lemi yachboitz hamelech lasois yikar yoser mimeni. He's very vain, very conceited. He thought to himself, who does a king wish to honor more than me? And the king is asking me what should be done to the man the king wishes to honor. He's asking, what reward would you like for yourself? Who would the king want to honor more than me? So Haman is already plotting schemes in his mind. He has his eye on the big prize, on the throne. And he says, Vayomer Haman el melech. Haman said to the king, Ish asher melech chafetz v'karoi. If you have the man whom the king wishes to honor, here's what you should do. And there are dozens of amarim from all the Rabbeim, starting with these next words, Yaviu levush malchus. You should bring the royal garments, asher lavash boi hamelech, which the king wore. Lavash means in a past tense. The king had many different garments. Here's what you should do. What? And there are dozens of amarim from all the Rabbeim, starting with these next words. He had many garments, but he had one special pair of garments which he only wore once, which were, lavash means he wore in the past. On the day of his coronation, when he became a king, he wore special garments. And these garments are unique, that no one but the king is ever allowed to wear it. So Haman told the king, told Achashverosh, the man whom you wish to honor should wear these royal garments that you wore by your coronation. Haman in his mind is thinking, great, this is my first day. I have all my allies, I have Esther on my side, I have the king's men, and I'm going to now start my takeover of the king. So he says, it's only fitting for me to wear these royal garments of King Achashverosh. V'sus asher rochav alav hamelech, as well as a horse which the king rode upon. So he had very special, unique horses for the king. And the king had a special horse by his coronation. Should have this special horse. V'asher nitan keser malchus b'roshai. And the biggest insult of all is that Haman said that the king, Yossi, Shalom Aleichem.
Shalom Aleichem, Rabbi.
Welcome. So biggest, again, the biggest insult of all was that he should put on the man whom the king wishes to honor, he should place the royal crown. Let me just bring up on the screen over here. I'll do it this way. Some old pictures from the time that they found in Shushan. Here is a depiction they made of the king's royal horse. If you see over here, it's going to be brought up soon in the Gemara. Here's a king's horse. And if you look over here, this servant over here is carrying a stool. The servant would have to carry, the king would get up onto the horse, and the servant would carry a special stool for the king to get on. Let's go to the next picture. It's not moving. Okay, we'll go like this. I'll go to the next picture this way. Here is from a relief, like I say, it says from the coronation of King Achashverosh, a drawing that was made, which they found over there in Shushan. And it mentions over here in this pasuk the royal crown which Achashverosh wore. So this royal crown over here, it's part of a seal that they found. There were many seals like this. And the writing on the side over here actually says, I, Xerxes, the king, meaning I, Achashverosh, the king. And they found this seal, and over 100 different places, like whether it was documents or jugs, over 100 different places that they found that this seal was used. So this is, say, a drawing of the coronation of Achashverosh. So he's wearing a special garments, he's killing a dragon, but you see a special crown that he has on his head. Continues the Gemara. So Haman says you should bring the special robes of the king, the special garments of the king, and you should give the royal crown on his head. So at this point, Achashverosh is getting quite nervous. What's Haman plotting, thinking? Haman continues. Haman thinks to himself, I want to humiliate Mordechai. Let the garments and the horse be delivered. Al yad ish misarei hamelech apartamim. One of the king's most noble princes should lead the horse. Vilbishu aseish, and not just that, one of the king's most noble princes should dress the man whom the king wishes to honor. So Haman is having in mind to himself that Mordechai should be the one to dress me up in the royal robes and in the garments and put on the crown on my head. And let him parade on a horse in the city square. And you should announce in front of him. So Mordechai should be announcing for Haman. Thus shall be done to the man whom the king wishes to honor. Go back to our handy pictures from Shushan. So here is another drying of the horses. According to the historians, Herodotus, a Greek historian, these horses were called, not this picture, a different one I wanted. I'm not sure if I put it up here on the screen. But these are very special horses, which came from a big plain. Here, this picture. A big plain in Media, Saudi Arabia area. And in general, the king and his commanders they used to ride gray horses. That's what it's brought down in some old history books. I know nowadays white is a color that dictators like riding, but then it was gray horses. So you see, these are different nobles. They're dressed in the dress of Hoidu and Kush, Persia and Media. And here are all the royal horses on top. So the king had many horses. So the king had one specific horse, which he rode on the day that he was coronated. Continues the Gemara. Continues the Megillah. So the man shall announce, thus shall be done to the man the king wishes to honor. Vayomer HaMelech LaHaman, and the king said to Haman, Naher, hurry up. Kach es halavush v'sasus kasher dibarta. Hurry up, take the garments, take the horse like you have spoken. V'asechein l'Mordechai HaYehudi, and do so, like everything you said, to Mordechai the Jew. Hayoshev b'shar HaMelech, who is sitting by the king's gate in his sackcloth and ashes. Al tapel davar mikol asher dibarta. Don't miss anything from anything you have said. When it says don't leave anything out, what does that mean? So the Gemara will say, what was the conversation between Haman and Achashverosh? And what does it mean that he can't leave anything out? Then it says, V'yikach Haman esalavush v'sasus. Haman took the garments and the horses. V'yalbesh es Mordechai, and he dressed Mordechai. V'yarkiveyu b'rechoy ve'ir, he paraded him in the city square. V'yikra l'fanav, and he announced in front of him, Kocha yeyase le'ish asher hamelech chafetz bikadei. So shall be done to the man whom the king wishes to honor. It says Haman was singing to Mordechai was singing praises to Hashem while he's on the horse, and it says Vayashav Mordechai al shar hamelech. Mordechai did not let this glory and greatness get to his head. Just like us today, Mordechai was fasting on that day. So Mordechai continued to fast. He didn't break his fast, and he returned to the king's gate, back to his sackcloth and ashes. Haman nidchaf el beisoi. Haman rushed home. Avel, he was mourning. V'chafoy rosh, and his head hung low in shame. So now let's continue with the Megillah. The Megillah will now the Gemara, which will go through this few psukim that we read now in the Megillah. So Achashverosh ordered Haman to fulfill his idea of honoring the man the king wishes to honor in the proper way by putting on the levush malchus, the royal garments, and the royal crown with a royal horse. And he had to do it all to Mordechai HaYehudi, Mordechai the Jew. Amar Lei, why didn't Achashverosh have to say, you should do this to Mordechai the Jew who was sitting by the king's gate? Why all these adjectives, all these descriptions? Says the Gemara, Haman was none too pleased to start honoring his arch enemy, Mordechai. So he made himself like he doesn't know what the king is talking about. I don't understand. So he told the king, Amar Lei, Haman told the king, Manu Mordechai. Who's Mordechai? Like Haman doesn't know. He came asking permission to hang Mordechai. So now he asks, who is Mordechai? Amar Lei, so Achashverosh told back to Haman, HaYehudi, Mordechai the Jew. So Haman still persists in acting like he doesn't know whom the king is talking about. Amar Lei, Haman told Achashverosh, Tuva Mordechai Ika. There are plenty of Mordechais among the Jews. So how do I know which Mordechai you have in mind? Amar Lei, so the king said to him, to Haman, a sign which Haman was now unable to mistake for anybody else. Hayoshev Bishar HaMelech. The Mordechai was sitting by the king's gate, by the big entrance of the palace. And obviously, he was very noticeable. So this Mordechai, he was the only Jew allowed inside the city of Shushan. Like we've seen earlier over here, in the city of Shushan, here's the big palace over here, and here's the gate, and the city of Shushan was out on the plain in this direction. That's where Daniel is buried. That's a village of Shush. Assumingly, Haman lived there as well. And the only Jew allowed in the whole called Villa Royale in the royal compound was Mordechai. So Achashverosh gave a sign to Haman that if you want to find this Mordechai, he's going to be by the king's gate, and here's the only Jew who's going to be there. So now Haman understood that he's stuck and he has nobody else but Mordechai that he must give all this honor to. Haman still tried getting out of it and making excuses. Amar Lei, Haman says to the king, why give him such great honor? I didn't mean. Sagile bechad diskarta. It's enough to honor Mordechai with something else. Maybe honor him and give him one village. And the Aruch says the Skarta means a ear, one city. So give him one city or give him one village. That's enough of an honor to him. You're giving him such riches and honor and glory. Do it right. Give him one. And also, furthermore, Haman was telling Achashverosh, if the king wishes to honor somebody, it's not befitting. You should honor a man sitting in sackcloth and ashes, a man who looks poor, he's not wealthy. You should only honor a wealthy man, an honored, respectable man in such a way. So the king says, you know what? You're right. Make him wealthy. Give him a city, that he should own a city now. Now Mordechai should become wealthy. Inami, or perhaps instead of giving him a village to have an estate, give him bechad nara, give him one river, and then he could collect taxes from the river. People want to fish there, people want to get water from there, people want to have a water mill, and you're going to have to pay taxes to Mordechai. But give him a city, give him a river, but don't. It's excessive a little bit to give him things, to give him a crown and to give him the royal horse and the royal garments. It's very excessive. This is how the Marsha explains. The Toisus Chachmei Anglia. The Jews were expelled from England in 10-something, in the 1000s, I think. But for a short time, until the time of, there were Balei Toisus in England. They were Talmidei Chachamim, the Torah scholars from the times of the Baal Toisus, who were active in England. I think the most active city was the city of York. But then in York, the Jews were all massacred, and Jews were eventually expelled from England, and only Oliver Cromwell with, I think, Menashe, Ben Israel, about 400 years later, he allowed the Jews to come back to England. But so, Toisus Chachmei Anglia, he says he understands it to be like this. The Haman is telling the king, the Jews were expelled in 1290. Thank you, Dovi. Jews were expelled from England in 1290. That made more sense because that was about the time of the Balei HaToisus, the Crusader period. And so Haman was telling the king, it's enough that I could lead Mordechai just through one village or just along one river bridge. One river means just along one bridge. I don't have to go through the whole city of Shushan. I could go and just lead him in a small area across one bridge or across one river, or in one village. I'll find the smallest village. Sometimes, like legally, you have to announce, say that a company is being founded. So they'll find a news, and you have to announce it in 3 newspapers legally, and they'll find the newspaper in a small town, middle of somewhere far away, upstate New York, and they'll have an announcement: this company is opening up or closing, if they don't want people to know and to pay attention. So in a similar way, Haman is telling the king, according to Toisus Chachmei Anglia, that it's enough that I should lead Mordechai just through one village or just over one bridge. So Achashverosh tells him, you know what? Great ideas. You want to give him a present of a village and a city? Give him that too. And you want him to give him that he should own a river and collect taxes from the river? Great idea. Al Tapel Amarle told him, Hanami Havle. Achashverosh said to Haman, give that to him also. That too. And that's what it says in the Megillah, the words, Al Tapel Davar Mikol Asher Dibarta. Let nothing be missing from everything that you have spoken. Provide him with everything that you have said, plus lead him around the city on a horse and announce in front of him, thus shall be done to the man whom the king wishes to honor. How come the king told Haman, if you look at it, Maher, rush, hurry up. Hurry, take the garments and the horses as you have spoken. Why is the king rushing Haman so much? So it's brought down from the Iyun Yaakov. Achashverosh thought to himself that maybe Mordechai is now going to come to him and start demanding rewards. And Mordechai is a Jew, and Mordechai is going to demand, I want something for saving the king's life. Who knows what he's going to ask for me? He might ask me to build a Beis HaMikdash. We learned before, that was Achashverosh's worst nightmare, as he told Esther, at Chatzi Malchus, only until requesting the Beis HaMikdash and not more. He wouldn't give that to Mordechai. So he says, hurry up, before Mordechai finds out that I owe him reward, because word's going to get out. There's always rumors, what happens in the royal court. And so hurry up and quickly give Mordechai all of these honors before he starts demanding from me other things. So now we could also explain why Mordechai, right after it says, after the whole entire day of going around and being honored, it says Mordechai returned to the king's gate with the sackcloth and his ashes. Seemingly, Mordechai should have started dancing victory laps. Everything's going good. Things are starting to look up from out of totally unexpected. Haman, who wanted to hang Mordechai in the gallows, is suddenly leading me around the city and honoring me. And now Mordechai goes straight back to his sackcloth and ashes because Mordechai did not assume that the miracle would come from here, because he understood that from the fact that Achashverosh was giving so much honor to Mordechai was not coming out of the goodness of Achashverosh's heart, rather was coming from the fact that Achashverosh was worried that Mordechai will demand something else. So in his mind, Achashverosh already fulfilled his obligation of honoring Mordechai for saving his life, and now the Jews still have not been saved. The decree is still there. And Mordechai returned to his sackcloth and ashes. The beautiful explanation of the Rebbe is that Mordechai understood very clearly that the decree against the Jews was not a natural decree. It's because of the way the Jews acted. They're mach v'rash. They had pleasure from the king's feast. They bowed down to the idol. Fasting, like we're fasting today, Mordechai was fasting. Fasting is not something which one is supposed to do. Now, Rambam says that to be healthy is one of the ways of serving Hashem. Baal Shem Tov said that one should no longer fast in today's times. Instead, you should fast not in your stomach, rather fast with your mouth and with your mind, not to say things you shouldn't say, not to look and hear and think of things you shouldn't speak. It's more important to fast with your mouth than it is to fast with your stomach in today's days. So why is Mordechai going back to fast? And so Mordechai understood clearly that the decree was not a result of Haman's hatred or Achashverosh's anti-Semitism. They don't have power to do anything to the Jewish people. Hashem is our father, and a father will never let his child be harmed by anybody. If there's a decree against the Jews, it's because in heaven, in Shemayim, is a decree against the Jewish nation, and that's what caused the decree in this world. It says in Tanya, Geras HaKodesh Shimon Chav Beis, that every punishment which a person has, which a person gets, only comes from the great love that Hashem has to the Jews, to a person. That's why Hashem will punish a person. He gives it a mashal for a big king, which has an only son, and he wants to discipline his son. So the king himself will go down and to discipline his son. Like it says in Eicha, Rachatz Hashem soyas bas Tzion. Hashem rinsed off the dung of the daughters of Tzion, the dirt and excrement which was on the Jewish nation. The excrement on the Jewish people is things that don't belong there. If averos, sins that a Jewish which are very hard to Hashem. So when a child you have to give a child a bath and they're full of sores, it's very painful. But the father will give a bath to the son and rinse off the excrement of Bnei Tzion in order to heal them, to make it better for them. So if the Jewish people have not yet fixed the reason of the decree, which is their sins, so it doesn't matter what Haman says, what Achashverosh does to honor Mordechai. It wasn't their hatred which caused a decree, and it wasn't their sudden love to the Jews which will abolish the decree. And if Mordechai sees that Achashverosh is denigrating Haman and making him lead Mordechai through the city, it doesn't change the decree. Only through proper teshuvah will the Jewish people be saved. And since,
excuse me, did you ever see a parish that the crown was supposed to be on the horse and not on Mordechai?
that the crown goes on the horse?
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah, because it was the king's horse, and because if you, in a sense, you put the crown on the person, then it's like you mamish, he becomes king. So
Interesting.
I don't know if I saw that somewhere being, or it's like I don't have a source for that, but
It's
Also,
very
it says,
interesting.
it says about the Rehov Melech. This it's translated here a courtyard, but Rehov is usually a road. No,
Over here, Rechov, the city square.
yeah,
And in the city square.
as opposed to a road. Okay.
See, nowadays a Rechov is a road.
Mhm.
I don't know. Interesting. So, right, because Rechov is usually translated as a road.
Yeah.
I don't know. So, I mean, it could be that there was a big road that went into a square. I'm not really sure.
Okay.
It says, so then Haman took the garments. So Mordechai knows that the way the decree will be nullified is through continuing what he is doing before, continuing the ways of Teshuvah. So Mordechai returned to his sackcloth and his ashes. Only after he saw that the 3-day fast was finished and everybody did true, deep Teshuvah, then Mordechai saw that the decree was abolished from above. He realized that automatically the decree is going to also be abolished in the lower realms in this world as well. But this is only after Mordechai saw that the decree was abolished. We'll continue now with ideas of Shivah, Asar, BeTammuz. Just one to tie it in with our Gemara. It says that when Haman came to find Mordechai, the Gemara says he found him to put him on the horse, and he saw him. Mordechai was learning the halachas of kmitza. Kmitza is when you bring a karban mincha, a certain karban in the Beis Hamikdash, a flour, and the flour is made into matzahs, or breads that are not chametz, and a small part is brought on the mizbeach. How much? It's called a koimetz. Koimetz is, the kohen takes 3 fingers, he dips it into the mixture of flour and oil, picks it up, and then with his thumb and his pinky, he wipes away the extra flour and oil, and that's a part that gets burnt on the mizbeach from a flour offering, from a karban mincha. And Mordechai was teaching hilchas kmitza, the laws of kmitza, koimetz, to his students. Why was he doing that? Because that day was the second day of Pesach. Dovi, what takes place the second day of Pesach in the Beis Hamikdash? Which karban? Something we start doing, a mitzvah, we count 49 days. It'll be the karban omer, the omer karban. They would, in the base times of the Beis Hamikdash, they would cut new barley and wheat and bring a karban in the Beis Hamikdash called the karban omer on the second day of Pesach. So this is the second day of Pesach. It'll be the first day of Chol Hamoed Pesach. And Mordechai is learning with his students about Hilchas Kmitza. He's demonstrating to them how you do a koimetz. You take 3 fingers and you wipe off the flour on the sides, and then you bring it on the mizbeach. But it's already been 68 years since the Beis Hamikdash has been destroyed, or 67 years to be more exact, since the Beis Hamikdash has been destroyed. What's Mordechai teaching his students about something that's not practical, not relevant? Especially there's a decree of destruction and annihilation on them, all the Jews are going to be destroyed. So then they're not even going to be going back to the Beis HaMikdash. They're not even going to be going back to bringing karbanos in the Beis HaMikdash. They won't be doing the omer. They won't be doing the kmitza. Why is Mordechai learning about the halachas of the karban omer and the halachas of the kmitza? Why is he showing them how it's done? Not just learning about it. He's showing them how it's done. For what purpose? From here we see how important and how special and how it is. It says, somebody could not bring a karban, then you have to learn about that karban. For example, today's Chumash is talking about the karban tamid. It's today's Chumash, Parshas Pinchas Chamishi. It's a reading, the third reading that we of Rosh Chodesh. They should bring a karban tamid, a daily sacrifice every single day, every morning and every evening. And we say this parsha. We learn it. We say karbanos in the morning before Shacharis, and again in the afternoon before Mincha. Because since we cannot bring the karban, we learn about it, and we learn the Torah of it. It's as if you did it. If somebody, for whatever reason, not able to go to mikvah, so then you learn the Mishnayos of mikvayos in the back of the siddur. So if you cannot do something, you learn the Torah of it. And when you learn it, it's as if you did it. It says, ilu hikriv oila. It's as if you brought a karban, a sacrifice, by learning about the halachas of karbanos. So Mordechai, as well, he's teaching all of the Talmidei Chachamim, all the Torah scholars and the students about Hilchos Kmitza, the laws of the karban omer, the laws of the mincha, the koimetz, the amount you have to put on the mizbeach. Because now is a time when we're supposed to bring a karban omer in the times of the Beis HaMikdash. So now is a time I'm going to show you how to do it, so it will be considered as if we did it. And how many times did the Rebbe tell us that in the 3 weeks which is starting today, we should learn about the Beis HaMikdash? In the last 2 years, Baruch Hashem, been going through learning about the Beis HaMikdash with pictures, with slideshows, with videos, the halachas from the Rambam. Because when learning about the building of the Beis HaMikdash, it's as if you're building it. And even more than that, as it says in Yecheskel, Hashem told Yecheskel. Yecheskel was one of the Nevi'im, one of the prophets over there in Shushan, together with Mordechai and Chagai, Zechariah, Malachi, and Daniel. And Yecheskel is over there in the Har Elam, the Elam River. Elam River is a river which is right outside of the palace of Shushan. There's a river till today called the Har Elam. And I'm not sure, but till today there's a river right outside the area of the palace, and that's where Yecheskel had his here. That's where the river is. It's called the river Shiur on the Har Elam, and Yecheskel has a prophecy. What will the third Beis HaMikdash look like? And in Yecheskel, it describes in detail exactly the building of the third Beis HaMikdash. And Yecheskel tells Hashem, it's not fair. What are you teaching us? What are you telling me about building the third Beis HaMikdash if right now we have no Beis HaMikdash? The first one is destroyed. We don't have the second one. What are you teaching me? What are you telling me? Sort of mocking the Jewish people about how to build the third Beis HaMikdash. And so Hashem tells him, if you learn about the building, if you learn about building my Beis HaMikdash, then it's as you're building it yourself. But that the way to build the Beis HaMikdash is not just it's as if you're building it, but this is actually building it, Hashem tells Yecheskel, as it says in Medrash. So the proper way to learn to build the Beis HaMikdash in the 3 weeks is by learning about the Beis HaMikdash. And of course, removing the cause of the destruction of the second Beis HaMikdash, which was sinas chinam, senseless hatred. So in today's Chumash, I'll bring this up on the screen again. In today's Chumash, daily study, Chumash with Rashi. I'll bring it up here on the screen. So today's Chumash speaks about Hashem tells the Jewish people, as karbani lachmi l'isha, you should make sure to bring for me a sacrifice every single day at its appointed time. This is a carbon oila, a completely burnt carbon which you bring every day. 2 lambs which don't have a mum. Shnayim layom oila summit. Every single day you should bring 2 lambs on the mizbeach as a carbon, as a sacrifice. As a keves echad taseh b'boker, 1 sacrifice, 1 sheep you shall bring up in the morning. As a keves hasheni taseh ben harbayim, the other lamb you should bring up in the afternoon. Vasir sa'efa sa'ilus mincha belulav Hashem and kasis ervia sahin. Fine flour you should bring an ephah, a certain measurement, together with a quarter of a hin. It's about it's a revius, about 3.4 ounces of oil mixed with the flour, and you bring a koimetz, the same amount, every single day, oilas tamid, every single day. So this is today's Chumash. L'hashkacha pratis, we learned at the end the Mesechta Tainus. What happened? What are all the different occurrences which occurred on Shivah Asar BeTammuz? Many different things happened throughout Jewish history. First one was that Moshe Rabbeinu broke the luchos. He broke the tablets. I think it was around this time last year we were learning about it. I think on Shivah Asar BeTammuz, near the very end of the Mesechta. Here it is. 5 things happened to our fathers on the 17th of Tammuz. 5 calamities happened to them on Tisha B'Av. On the 17th of Tammuz, Nishtabru haluchos, the tablets, Moshe Rabbeinu broke the luchos after the Jews had made the golden calf on the day before. Uvutal hatamid, the daily offering was nullified by the Romans and was never brought again. So on the 17th of Tammuz is a day that the carbon tamid, the daily offering, was stopped by the Romans. Hufka ha'ir, and the city walls of Yerushalayim were breached. The son of Apostomus Torah, Apostomus burnt the Sefer Torah, which was inside the Hazara, the special Torah from Ezra. V'hemit tzelem b'heichal, and he placed an idol in the sanctuary in the Heichal. So what happened on the 17th of Tammuz, the first one is the daily offering was nullified by the authorities. When we learned Mesechta Tainus, we said whether it was in the first Beis HaMikdash or the second Beis HaMikdash. We brought a story over there about the 2 Greek generals, about the 2 generals which were fighting. So today's Chumash, we learn about bringing the daily offering, the carbon tamid. So to nullify the effect of what happens on the 17th of Tammuz, when they stop bringing the daily carbon, the daily sacrifice in the Beis HaMikdash, Hashkacha Pratis at today's Chumash is exactly this point. Bringing the carbon tamid, how to bring the daily sacrifice in the Beis HaMikdash. And when you learn about it, it's as if you're fulfilling it. And not just that, it brings back the time much closer. And it's a special day. It's a day of a fast day. It's called Tainis V'Eis V'Yom Ratzin Hashem. It's a day of a auspicious time for Hashem. So when you learn Torah on that day, definitely has to do with rebuilding the Beis Hamikdash in order to rebuild the Beis Hamikdash, bring the carbon tamid on that day again. The second thing, which said, Moshe Rabbeinu broke the luchos, he broke the tablets. The first thing was they broke the tablets and there's no longer the Torah we just got from Hashem, and it's gone, it's broken. So Moshe Rabbeinu, can you imagine the most precious thing for him? No one appreciated Torah as much as him. He got to learn it with Hashem. He broke it, he said, in order to save the Jewish people, that they shouldn't say the Jews are transgressing what it says in the Torah, because the luchos are broken. To fix that aspect of breaking the luchos, which is a loss of Torah to the world, it's by adding on in ideas of learning Torah. Specifically, the Torah of today's Chumash, learning about the carbon tamid, the daily sacrifice in the Beis Hamikdash. The third thing took place on the 17th of Tammuz was Huvka Ha'ir. The city walls were breached. The walls of Yerushalayim were breached by the Romans in the first Beis Hamikdash, who said it took place on the 9th of Tammuz. But in the second Beis Hamikdash, the Romans, it took place on the 17th of Tammuz. Now, Yerushalayim is a very unique city. It's a city which did not belong to any specific tribe of Bnei Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael, the land, was divided into 10 parts, one for 10 Shvatim, 10 tribes. According to Shvatim, according to tribes, Eretz Yisrael, Shvatim. And Yerushalayim itself was not divided, was not given to any specific shevet, any specific portion, any tribe specifically. So you see over here, Menashe, Gad, and Reuven on the other side of the Jordan, and every shevet has every tribe has their portion where they received in Eretz Yisrael. Zvulun is by the water, Issachar is by the Kinneret, Menashe is over here, Yehuda is in the south. Till today, this whole area of Eretz Yisrael, Chevron, that whole area is called Yehuda, or the Yesha, Yehuda v'Shomron. Ephraim and Menashe, the kings, the 10 tribes were in the north. And the area of Yerushalayim itself was right at the border between Yehuda and Binyamin. But the city of Yerushalayim was not actually divided among any Shvatim, among any tribes, because it belongs to everybody equally. And the Beis Hamikdash, which is the main part of Yerushalayim, belongs to every Jew equally. And the most important aspect of the Beis Hamikdash, as the Rambam says right in the beginning of Hilchas Beis Abchira, is Boinin Bayis Lashem. Bring it up on the screen. Chapter 1, Hilchas Beis Abchira. Mitzvahs asay, there's a positive commandment. Lasas Bayis Lashem, to construct the house for Hashem. Muchan liyas makrivim baya karbanas, to be prepared to bring karbanas, sacrifices to Hashem. So that is the main, according to the Rambam, the main idea, the main reason of the Beis Hamikdash, to bring karbanas, sacrifices to Hashem, which the beginning of all karbanas is the carbon tamid. The very first carbon to be brought in the morning was the carbon tamid, the daily sacrifice, which we learn in today's Chumash. And the very last carbon to be brought was the carbon tamid as well, a daily sacrifice. So it's the first and the last, it encompasses everything. Similar to a wall of Yerushalayim, which surrounds the city. In a similar sense, you have the walls of the karbanas. What the first and the last carbon of every day is the carbon tamid, the daily sacrifice. the daily karban, which is brought in the Beis HaMikdash. So already in the beginning of the first day of the 3 weeks, and we learned just in the Gemara, very top of the Amud, very top of the page, that if things like this in a negative way, for sure, in a positive way, anything a person does is kept forever and is very strong. So this positivity of the first day of the 3 weeks, where you learn about the entire, which the entire 3 weeks come from here, and you learn about the idea of the karban tamid, the daily sacrifice, already is fixing up everything which took place when on the 17th of Tammuz, they had to stop bringing the daily sacrifice, and the walls were breached. You're fixing also the walls of Yerushalayim, and the karbanis in the city of Yerushalayim, which belongs to every Jew. That's by learning about the karbanis and the Beis HaMikdash, we're also fixing this idea that every single Jew is able to rebuild the Beis HaMikdash, not just specific Jews, but every Jew belongs to everyone equally to fix the lack of the Beis HaMikdash. The gematria of the number 17 is a word toiv, good. Everything is hashgacha pratis. Seemingly, what happened on the 17th of Tammuz is the exact opposite of goodness. But in truth, the 17th of Tammuz is actually a day of goodness. It says when Mashiach comes, all of the fast days will be made into holidays. And it says in Zechariah and the prophets that all of the fast days will become, just bring up the pasuk on the screen, will become Hashem says over here, Vayidvar Hashem tzvakas elai lemar. And the Zechariah says, the word of Hashem came to me saying, Koyamar Hashem tzvakas. Thus says Hashem, the Lord of the host. The fast of the 4th month, which is the 4th month from Nisan, which is Tammuz, which means the fast of the 17th of Tammuz. And the fast of the 5th month of the Tisha B'Av. The fast of the 7th month of Tishrei, which is Tzayim Gedalia. And the fast of the 10th month, which is Asar B'Teves, shall be come for the Jewish nation a house, a day of joy and happiness, and happy holidays. And truth and peace shall be beloved. So the word toiv, good, is used about Shivah Asar BeTammuz. The gematria of 17, on the 17th of Tammuz, is toiv, hashgacha pratis. That really it will become a good day. And in truth, it's so good that it already now has goodness. Sometimes the goodness is apparent. And like we said, Rachatz Hashem, Soyas B'noi Tzion, Hashem had to rinse off the excrement which is on the daughters of Tzion. To rinse off the dirt might sometimes be painful, but it's a good thing. But when Mashiach comes, we'll only have revealed goods. And last year, when Tisha B'Av and Shivah Asar BeTammuz was on a Shabbos, so then the Rebbe brought out the point how you have only the goodness of the fast. So you have to eat a meal on Shabbos, even though it's Tisha B'Av and Shivah Asar BeTammuz. Today, during reading of a Torah, we read the words, V'niflinu ani v'amcha. Me and my nation, Hashem says to Moshe, will be unique. Hashem will love the Jewish people. Turning over darkness to light. And so a lesson to learn out of this is how every Jew has to have a wall to fix the breaches in their own wall when it comes to Yiddishkeit, when it comes to Torah, in order to fix up the breaches that took place in the walls of Yerushalayim today. Yerushalayim is Yerushalayim. Yiras Shamayim, fear of heaven, and to fix up the breaches in our own walls. And in addition to that, the important thing as well is to make sure to give lots of extra tzedakah on a day of a fast day, which is a Yom Ratzin, Eis Ratzin, a very auspicious and a very special time. And when we come to the third Beis HaMikdash, says over there, we're going to have both sets of luchos. The luchos, which Moshe broke on the 17th of Tammuz, and the luchos, which Moshe brought down the second time. There's advantages to each set of luchos. The first luchos were directly from Hashem. The second luchos, Moshe Rabbeinu carved it out himself, and Hashem wrote the writing. But the second luchos, when we received it, it came with the entire Torah Sheba'al Peh, all the oral Torah, Sifra, Sifri, Midrashim, Gemaras, everything was part of the second set of luchos. So we'll have the advantages of the complete Torah as well. And it should, Mirza Hashem, be an easy fast, and you should have Beis HaMikdash now, not just only in learning and theory, but also in actuality. And